Hello, everyone. I am Storyteller. Thank you for visiting this peaceful place. I know you are looking for something soothing to help you fall asleep, and I am here to accompany you. If you enjoy, please give me a like and subscribe, and let me know where you are from. Thank you. The Doctor. Don't touch me. Keep your distance. I've heard that every day now for 9 months doesn't make things easy when you're the town's GP. First, it was the fires. Then it was the virus. Everything has turned to shit in Maui after the president was re-elected. Okay, he probably has nothing to do with it. But we need to blame someone, don't we? I put on my PPE bunny suit and wait at the Kihei Pier for the boat to arrive. Second boat this month, the sergeant says. Locked and loaded, I say, showing him my assault rifle and giving him a hint of a salute, even though military ranks no longer exist. Good stance, Doc. Besides being able to hold a rifle, I'm here to do spotting. Being the town's GP, people think I'm the best person at detecting who has been infected. What I don't tell those people is that the virus is invisible, and we don't have any medical supplies or way to detect it. And since we've run out of insulin last month, I've lost much of the feeling in my fingers. And my toes? We've lost our connection weeks ago. One day at a time. I need to carry on. I have a duty to my patients. The boat nears the dock. The men on board are pointing guns back at us. It makes sense. They are as suspicious of us as we are of them. They don't know whether the virus has taken hold here. They look nervous. That's a good sign. I hold my numb finger well away from the trigger of my AR-15. When the takeover began, it was easy to spot them. The freelancers. The first thing they lost was self-care. All they did was work. They spent no time looking in the mirror. All they wanted to do was to book billable hours. We normal people used to work 8 hours a day. They could work 20. But lately, the gig guru's AI has injected more of a human touch into the virus, leaving just enough human instinct for them to fly under the radar. Unless one is very, very discerning. A man on the front of the incoming boat shouts, "Honolulu Medical Supply Run, Captain Johnson from Tripler AMC." The sergeant gives a proper military salute to the boat. Sergeant Jaworski. Are we good to dock, Sergeant? All good here, Captain. The sergeant nods and signals the others to tie up the incoming boat. A moment later, Captain Johnson jumps off. I study his face closely. Well-defined cheekbones. We've all on a starvation diet these days. He notices my stare. Hey, chill out. We're friendlies. I keep my distance. Gig Guru's virus is so large, it doesn't spread easily. It can't travel through the air without its high molecular weight, making it drop to the ground. How it infects people, no one is exactly sure. Every story that changes history begins with a spark. An event so small and insignificant, no one noticed it at the time. Hitler giving his first speech on a corner in Vienna. the CIA attaching a missile to a drone in Afghanistan in 2002. The AI apocalypse started with something even smaller. In 2020, Gig Guru, a freelance company, sent health supplements to its workforce. They saw the programmers who received free yerba mate pills booked 12% more hours. The creatives who received green tea extract had higher customer satisfaction scores. It worked so well, Gig Guru hired data scientists to expand their biohealth program. The scientists expanded the system to program to giving freelancers suggestions on how to receive ADHD prescriptions. The next year, they requested their DNA samples. "We've been vaccinated," Captain Johnson says. "The military lab in Honolulu has come up with new tech. We're here to bring it to you." The captain holds out his hand for a handshake. I instinctively back off. "Why didn't you let us know about this over the radio?" the sergeant asks. "Operational secrecy." The sergeant nods. Apparently, this makes sense to him. The captain and his men haul crates of medical equipment off the boat. They take over our abandoned ice cream parlor at the end of the pier. Someone yanks the starting cord on the generator they brought. The lights turn on. They begin plugging in all the medical equipment. The rumble of the generator and the displays lighting up signals. Modern civilization. Something we are all longing for. I feel it's my duty to safeguard the best interest of my patients. What if Gig Guru alters the virus? I ask the captain. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I look to the sergeant for his opinion. The sergeant looks uneasy, but he defers to the captain. The scale of the military presence in Honolulu is hundreds of times greater than ours. And what do we have to lose? "I'll go first," the sergeant says. He leads from the front. I stand back, and him receive a series of medical checks. They take a vial out of a freezer box and give him an injection in the shoulder. "Don't feel a thing," he says with a big grin. The one he gives us when we are all worried about something. Everyone in our community receives their injection before me. I watch them closely for side effects. I can give aid if needed. Finally, it's my turn, and I sit down. Captain Johnson takes my blood pressure and oxygen levels with the jury-rigged equipment. I don't recognize some of the machines that they've put together. "Your blood pressure is running a bit high, but everything else is normal. How have you been feeling lately?" "A little off, but hanging in there." I feel my ribs poking out from my Aloha shirt. "Any symptoms?" he asks. I stare at my toes, the ones I can't feel. It wouldn't help to complain about diabetes right now, so I say nothing. I'll ask later if they have any insulin on Honolulu. "All good," I say. This man is a great patient. The captain looks at all his equipment and winks at his crew in the room. I stand up from my chair, and he gives me a hug. I want to shed a tear, as I haven't been hugged by anyone for years. I think of my daughter and how much I miss her. She's in California. It's probably too late, but I think there's still hope. "Thank you for your service, Doctor," the captain says. He hugs me even tighter, his arms almost crushing me. Someone comes up close behind me. I feel a sting in my buttocks. He's the only one infected, I hear him say, before everything goes dark. Dream time. The barren charcoal seas of Mare Crisium span the horizon in all directions. The vast Picard crater is the only natural feature of this desolate landscape. Its high outer ridges cast a long shadow across the crash site as our white, hot star races towards sunset and lunar night approaches. "Harper, put your jumper on," says Mama's voice. "It's getting cold." The earth looms large in the sky, about 20 times more massive than it should be. I take small, slow steps towards it, transfixed. That shouldn't be there. It's too close. Our planet is spinning rapidly. Each day only lasts 3 seconds. With each rotation, this beautiful blue marble becomes ever more obscured by wildfire smoke, noxious gases, and nuclear fallout, until the permacloud forms and engulfs our home world, suffocating my view. I leap up high in desperation and reach with straining fingertips for the earth. Floating 10 feet above the lunar surface, a gravitational tug of war fights over me. The mighty planet wants me to come home, but the proximity of the moon wins this match, pulling me back gently to its dusty surface. Our stricken Orion X command module now lies before me, casting a great silhouette across the faint backdrop of our galaxy. This impressive machine towers over me, yet we are both still dwarfed by the endless nothingness of the lunar surface and the infinite space beyond. I hesitate at the entrance hatch door. A familiar tightness across my chest warns me to back away. Death is close. But a promise is a promise, so I force a quivering hand against the frozen palm port scanner. Nothing happens straight away. But sure enough, the warmth of my touch thaws the device until the emergency lighting illuminates the sensor pad and the outer hatch slides open. Taking a deep breath of nothing, I step in, shiver, and rub my arms as a ghostly chill runs through me. The inner airlock door is wide open to the main chamber. The lunar colony raiders who downed our ship have stripped it of all equipment. It's just a broken shell now, like me. This is usually the point when I awake, sweating and panicking. But this time is different somehow. This time, I'm ready to accept what has happened, to accept what I must do. Willing myself onwards, I creep around the other side of the central seating column. Burnsy's body is still strapped into his flight chair in full EVA suit, just as we were forced to leave him. The helmet visor is smashed, and I recoil at the sight of my dead friend's face. His one good remaining brown eye stares at me without seeing me. His features are perfectly preserved in the vacuum of space, with no oxygen or bacteria to do their worst. "All right, Harper," says Burnsy in his musical Welsh accent. "Took you long enough. Fancy taking this helmet off for me." Icy tears freeze upon my cheeks. "But I'll need to pull that shard out from your eye first. I'm bled out already. Just go for it." So I grip the metal fragment, once part of the ship's outer hull, with one hand and brace the other against Burnsy's forehead. There's a squelching sound as I ease it out from his eye socket. The gooey remains of his eyeball and some flesh and brain matter come out with it, making me retch. Burnsy doesn't move or make a sound until I have freed the 10-inch bloody dagger from his skull. I fling it away from us, exhale in relief, then twist off his cracked helmet. A pool of congealed blood oozes out with a sickly metallic stench. I throw up over my prison scrubs. "Ah, that's better. Cheers, mate," says Burnsy. "Hey, what's with the outfit?" "Solitary confinement. 1 year for sabotaging the mission." "Well, that's bollocks," he says. "It was your father, again. You weren't to know he was in league with those colonist bastards." I nod grimly, then clean my hands as best I can on my soiled uniform. Then, with great care, I remove both of his gloves and hold his freezing hands in mine. "I'm so sorry, Burnsy. I gave him the launch codes. It's all my fault." He reaches out to touch my cheek. "No, it's not. Your father tricked and betrayed you. Betrayed all of us. Come on now. No use crying. His love and compassion are more than I deserve. Tears are easy to wipe away. Guilt is not." I collapse into his strong, welcome arms. "I've missed you so much. I'll never forgive myself. Harper, this is not on you. Honestly, let it go." His undead hands gently prise me away, then undo his harness buckle. Taking my hands again, the body of Morgan Burns stands up. "Now let me go. It's time. I'm ready." I shake my head. "I'm not." He holds out an old-fashioned, wooden-handled spade towards me. "We promised each other, remember? It's time." Taking the spade in one hand, I turn to face the exit hatch. "Come on then." We step out onto the moon's black surface. My whole body convulses, and teeth start chattering. So I put on the old green woolly jumper and sheepskin boots that Mama keeps by the veranda. Then Burnsy and I head out for a nighttime stroll under the stars. Hand in hand, we walk across the dusty front yard, past the crooked gum tree and battered old tire swing I once loved so much. We continue past the empty, rusty cattle pens and into the outback. The sweet honey aroma of golden wattle trees fills the night air. This is just how I remember it. before the great firestorm, rose everything to ashes. With the darkness of a new moon above, the magnificent celestial arc of the Milky Way rises above the domed silhouettes of the distant Kata Chuta peaks. "Is this where you grew up?" asks Bernsey. "Partly. This was Grandpa's station and the ancestral homeland of Nana Kira. We rest under the canopy of a pale river red gum tree, where Nana used to tell my cousins and me Dreamtime stories." "Here, by this creek?" "Perfect," says Bernsey. "We were happy, weren't we? In Australia, his face is healed. Younger. Like from our R&D lab days back in Perth. His long, dark, matted hair is back, as are the memories of those raucous times." My cautious smile turns into a big grin. "Those were the best days. Remember the nights out we had with Eddie, Kathy, and the gang? They were proper banging, eh?" he says. "How about them drinking games we played? Like Moose and One Lifeboat." "What? All the games that you instigated? Not to mention those rude rugby chants you had us singing through the streets after closing time. We laugh until we cry. Then we just cry, mourning our long-lost friends, our families, and the lives we once had. Taking him by the hand, I broach the unspoken subject between us. "Bernsey, I'm sorry I never fully loved you, like you loved me." His longing eyes are too much to bear, so I look down and make marks in the dirt with a stick. "I just wish I felt those sorts of feelings. I wish I felt them for you." He leans over and kisses me gently on the cheek. I turn my head so our noses touch, and our eyes meet once more. My hands are on his muscular chest. He's not bodybuilder big, but lean, like a man who's spent years building machines with his hands, and with me. He takes me in his arms once more. An alien sensation, an urge comes over me. So I kiss him back on the lips, fuller, deeper. A light breeze rustles the eucalyptus leaves overhead, and their minty, woody scent rains down upon us. Starlight dances upon the unhurried ebbs and flows of the burbling creek. A distant pair of boobook owls call to each other with mournful hoots, as if for the last time. Afterwards, we hold each other, gazing up at the night sky through the gaps in the canopy. We lay like this for a long while, putting off the inevitable, until Bernsey passes me the spade again. I'm ready now, so I get up and start digging. "Aren't you going to help?" "I'm dead, remember? Always an excuse. The ground is dry and hard, so Grandpa Handley helps instead. After a long while, just before the outback dawn breaks, Bernsey's shallow grave is ready. "Climb in then," I say. But Bernsey doesn't reply. His lifeless body, short-haired, blood-stained, and missing one eye, is already laid to rest. Scooping up the tear-spotted red earth, I find enough peace to bury my best friend and say goodbye, just as I promised, 308 years later. Just listen, don't talk. You need time to wake up, for your eyesight to return. Everything will be a little hazy, and you might not remember how you got here, but you need to focus on my voice. My name is Dr. Yadav. I tried to lean forward, but my body felt as if it weighed 100 tons. I barely moved an inch before I slumped back into the bed. This is going to be a lot to hear at once, but it's important that you know these things right away. In 2043, your body was suspended in an experimental bioamber, freezing your body until woken. You participated in this trial because you had been diagnosed with Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease and given 6 months to live. At the time of your diagnosis, researchers estimated that they were less than 30 years from finalizing a cure. How long? I coughed, a thin film of bioamber, tasting like burnt paracetamol, covering every receptor inside my mouth, nose, and throat. You can talk. That's excellent. Much quicker than the others. Excellent. Superb, he said, pausing to make a note. Well, I don't mean to use too much of an old cliché, but there's bad news and there's good news. The good news is a cure has been found, and it was administered before you woke up. Congratulations. You're free of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. The bad news is that it didn't come as quickly as researchers had expected. Tell me, I sputtered. My eyelids flickered as I tried to force them open. The agreement that you signed stipulated that you were only to be woken up after a cure had been found. The year is now 2351. You didn't know that it would take 308 years when you signed that document. And for that, I am truly sorry. There should have been a clause in the agreement that prevented this scenario from coming to fruition. There was much debate within the scientific community as to whether or not you should be woken up. And I hope that you feel we made the right choice. Mr. Jones, welcome to the 24th century. This isn't funny, I snapped, but I already knew that he was telling the truth. I could feel it in the tone of his voice, the way the air felt as I breathed it in, the unfamiliar ambient noise trickling into the room. But I couldn't admit it. Not yet. Did Angela put you up to this? What the hell is going on? Said the doctor, tapping away at a device. After a short pause, he told me that it appears your sister was buried in July 2089. I'm so sorry for your loss. Once you've fully recovered, we can take you to where she was buried, if you'd like. My vision was returning, each second bringing a small increase in light. I could now make out the silhouette of the doctor, his sympathetic stance over my bed. Really? This was all I could say. What else could I say to him? I already believed him. It was starting to come back to me in pieces. Angela, the disease, hospital. I can remember her face screwed up like a pillow, crying and asking me if I was sure. I told her I'd be back before she knew it. I'm afraid so. As far as we can tell, you have no living family beyond distant cousins. I can imagine that this must be a lonely experience for you. But believe me when I say that we're all here for you. I tried to swing my legs off of the side of the bed, but could only muster a twitch. Mr. Jones, it may be some time until you're back on your feet again. You'll need a few days to adjust, he said, watching my face as I winced at my immobile legs. The man's voice was kind. He really wanted the best for me, I felt. You're going to need some rest. You're suffering from what we can only describe as severe jet lag. Your body clock was expecting it to be 3 centuries ago when you woke up. Is that how jet lag works? We don't know. Nobody has been in amber for nearly as long as you, and it's been decades since anyone has been woken up. We won't know what the effects on your body have been yet, but we'll keep a close eye on it. When he returned the next day, after I'd slept for what felt like weeks, his tone had begun to shift. It was almost imperceptible, but I could feel the change innately. Good morning, Mr. Jones. How are we feeling this morning? Good. I nodded. I'm starving, though. I feel like I haven't eaten in centuries. Do you have anything? Dr. Yadav smiled, pointing toward the tubes that connected my forearm to a machine next to the bed. I inspected it closely, only now aware of my vision having completely returned. All the nutrients that you'll be needing for now, he said. I sat up in the bed, feeling a world better than the day before, but still weak and unable to completely support my body weight. So, Doc, what's the world like out there? What's changed? Don't tell me. Flying cars, right? The doctor exhaled, looking up, shaking his head. Imagine trying to explain the world as you knew it to someone from 1743. Almost impossible, isn't it? Telephones, the internet, airplanes. It would all be so far removed from his reality that it would be impossible to explain in a way that he would really understand. His lack of understanding might even lead him to believe that people from your time live in a hellish place. I paused and reflected. Could it really be that different? I looked around. The one small window on the other side of the room was frosted, the bed like any other I'd seen, and the rest of the room almost entirely featureless. You're wondering if it's really that different, huh? He said. The room has been specifically designed to not overwhelm you. A lot of preparation has gone into waking you. We've been waiting for this for a long time. We just don't know what to expect, so we're taking things slowly. I hope you understand. I'll be fine, Doc, honestly. I'm actually quite excited to go out and see the world, see what's come of it. And by the way, where am I? Chicago. The city of your birth, I'm told. It only seemed right that you were moved to this facility before we woke you. But you're not ready to head outside just yet. There's a lot of things that we'd need to explain to you before you went out there. Otherwise, it might all too overwhelming. I mean, just us telling you about the world is going to be overwhelming. But to see it, to see what's out there, it'll take some adjusting, that's for sure. I'm sure I can handle it, but I'll take your word for it. When will I be better? Back on my feet? Only a day or two. As I said, what's happening to you isn't something that's ever really happened before, so there's still a few unknowns. Good. So, what next? A tenseness seemed to creep onto the doctor's shoulders, and with a twitch in his eye, he began to shift his weight from one foot to the other, as if suddenly disassociating and leaving the room entirely. Doc? Oh, yes, he snapped out of his daze. We'll need to run some tests. You're a man from the past. There's a lot we can learn about you. But it'll all be fine. Really, it will be. When he had told me that I had woken into a world 308 years beyond my own, his tone of voice told me that he was telling the truth. His tone of voice was now telling me that he was lying, and I was right. That night, whilst I was half asleep, 3 new doctors came in. Is he awake? One of them whispered to another. They tapped away at their pads, prompting a hiss from the machine beside me, which was the last thing that I heard before waking up in a new room, blinded by lights. I was naked, lying flat on a slab, my wrists and ankles inexplicably bound to its corners. My head turned from side to look, but there were no straps holding me in place. As if by magic, I was restrained. I looked down towards my ankles to find that my abdomen had been opened like a fruit or a pair of double doors. My skin attached on the sides of my body, but resting like blankets beside me. A machine hovered above me, metal instruments dangling towards the undulating yellow and pink of my innards. Immediately, I screamed, and the machine spun towards me before I passed out again. I awoke back in my bed, slowly at first, before shifting into a panicked scramble up the bed. I lifted my shirt quickly, but found nothing. No evidence of surgery. Panting, I began to realize that it was simply a dream. There was no other explanation. An awful dream, so vivid, so frightening, that if I hadn't had woken, I would have never known not to be reality. The doctor came in. Mr. Jones, how are you feeling? You're looking a little sweaty. I'll get the heat turned down. He tapped away at his device. Just a bad dream. I'm fine. I guess I'm just adjusting to being awake after all this time. Yes, when we're treading new biological waters, we're bound to discover new effects on the human body and mind. That's why it's important for you to stay here, under observation for the time being. But listen, that's not why I'm here, he said, walking to the window, picking up a seat under it, and bringing it back to place beside the bed. Sitting down, taking on a somber expression, he explained, "There is a legal responsibility as your doctor to fully inform you of your options, all of them. Since you're not from this time, you won't know that euthanasia is a common practice now. We don't force anyone to choose between life or a brutal, self-inflicted death. You should know that being a patient of ours, this is something we can provide to you for free. It's designed to be quite pleasant. I just want you to know that this option will always be available." "Thanks, Doc," I chuckled. "Good to know," he nodded, tapped at his device again, catching me completely off guard. I was now falling asleep again. In the first few moments, I wondered if I had miscommunicated. Perhaps this was euthanasia. Was I dying? Was I being sedated? I should have been clearer. I tried to protest, but only managed a small murmur before slipping under. When I awoke, I was back on that terrible slab, held captive again under the piercing lights of the operating table. I looked down to find that, whilst my abdomen was intact, there was something wrong with my leg. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but it didn't look or feel as it should. I looked across to find that cruel machine again. This time it was facing away from me, inspecting something. I squinted, trying to shut out the operating lights and focus. It was holding something. A stick. Something white, slightly yellowish. It spun around and zipped back to hover over me again, obscuring the view of my strange leg. It moved in such an impossible way, as if completely weightless, like a ghost. Just then, a piercing, white-hot pain shot up my leg. My muscles seized up, turning to stone, as pain flooded and swelled into every fiber of tissue. Through the pain, I moved my head to get a better look. Two of its arachnid appendages were sliding my shin bone back into my body through a small opening below my knee. I cried out, wailed even, before fainting. The machine didn't even need to sedate me. Waking once more, back in my bed, I pulled up my linen trouser leg. Nothing. I sigh, adjusting myself back into bed, the image of the machine still bright in my mind. I felt almost embarrassed to have dreamt something so unrealistic, so childish. It was made of a black metal, the deepest black, whilst at the same time being as shiny as a serving spoon. Its body was spherical, with a number of appendages hanging down below it, like the legs of a bug, or an arachnid at the end of each of them. Some kind of tool or device. Blades, rods, syringes. And when it had turned to me, I had seen that a part of its spherical surface was in fact a tinted glass, a glint of light revealing a large lens behind it. And the strangest thing, it glided around so quickly without making even the slightest sound. It was completely silent. I suppose my imagination couldn't stretch as far as imagining a sound for it. After a short while, an orderly entered the room. "From the doctor," he said, as he handed me one of their devices. It was square, about half the size of a piece of paper, and was transparent, but only from the side with the interface. On the screen was a short paragraph about euthanasia, with two options below it: accept, decline. I pressed decline and felt the sensation of pressing a physical button suspended in 3 dimensions inside the device. The orderly, having waited patiently, took the device and turned to leave. As he was making his exit, he hesitated, pausing in his stride for a minute and beginning to turn before recommitting to his path. "Everything okay?" I asked. He paused again, taking his time to think before he turned. I'm sorry," he said, visibly nervous. He was small, childlike, no older than 20. "I've heard so much about you, and to see you here, I can't believe it. I studied about you. You're really from the 2040s? I nodded, smiling like a wise old monk. "So, what was it like? The past? Was it like they say?" "Well, what do they say?" "They say it was good. A simple way of living. The birth of technology, the information era. I can't imagine what it was like." "Yeah, it was good. I miss it a lot. If only I knew what this world was like, I would have some point of reference to describe my own time to him. It sure didn't feel simple at the time, but maybe stuff got even more complicated since then." His eye twitched as I said this, an indecipherable emotion sweeping across his face, just like the doctor's had. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I guess." With that, he left the room without another word. I spent the remainder of the day thinking about the outside world. What could possibly be so overwhelming for me? Flying cars? A city in the sky? Or had they lied to keep me here and stop me from leaving early? It annoyed me that they hadn't even given me a clue. "I'll take a peek," I decided. "Tonight. I'll sneak out of the front door for a few moments, take in the sights of whatever is outside. At least then I'll have a taste, without actually being thrust out to navigate a new world on my own." Dr. Yadav said that they'd always look after me. Of course, I waited for hours, picturing all of the possibilities. I thought about the year 1700, compared it with the year 2000. The immense societal and technological shifts over the years. Could it really be the same degree of change? Life in 2000 was better than in 1700, I concluded. So, life now must be better than in my own time, in the dead of night. I left the room, moving carefully down the dim hallway. It was as featureless as my room. I didn't need to walk for long before I spotted a sign above a door. Emergency exit. Before entering, I instinctively checked the hall. I looked right. I looked left. I froze, swung my head right again. There it was, gliding silently at the end of the hallway, that awful machine, at this distance, a marauding silhouette. I shot down the stairs like a bullet as I moved. My hands fumbled across my abdomen, looking for a scar. How could they? I lamented. They're keeping me here for their experiments, to examine me, my bones, my flesh. I felt sick. They couldn't lie to me anymore. I'd outsmarted them. I'll leave and never come back, I told myself. Finally, I reached the bottom of the stairs and found a set of double doors. I listened out for the machine, knowing full well that if it were coming, I wouldn't hear it. With a hand on the push bar, I considered for a moment my predicament. No evidence that my nightmares were real. Could my mind, destroyed by disease and time travel, have betrayed me? A flying, silent machine? I supposed that I would find out soon enough. I was outside for 17 minutes. That's all it took before I was back at the door, banging on the cold iron until my fists were bloody. Let me in! God damn you all to hell, you bastards! I want euthanasia. I want it now. I want it now. Let me back in. You made me a remake. Chelsea Bonifade was a dirty blonde, hazel-eyed, nervous wreck. There was no Shakespearean way to put it. A sneeze had the girl run for cover, like a live grenade was tossed in her direction. She found solace in books, and yet she would see a library as too crowded for her comfort. If being an introvert could be mathematically cubed in real life, it would be her. A hall of mirrors stood before her, each one illuminated by a light inserted into the ceiling. At the behest of her date, promising that this would help with her anxiety and nervousness, she walked through the doorway and started her navigation, reflecting on not just the images before her, but on her memories of the past few weeks. For some reason, Tony Palmer had chosen her over all the other girls. Perhaps their outdoorsy demeanors put him off, given that they would exuberantly throw themselves onto any handsome boy with a large sum of money attached to his family's name. Or it could just be a personal preference. Chelsea never saw herself vainly, plainly applying a basic touch of makeup upon her visage before leaving her home to traverse the routine grounds of the school. It was during a day of taking her lunch out to the grounds that she actually bumped into Tony, her lunch meeting his shirt and adding more starch to it than what had been previously applied. He laughed the event off, but Chelsea was surprisingly insistent on washing out her mess. If anyone else found out about this at school, she couldn't bear to show her face around anymore. As for Tony, he had been with her for almost a month, exercising the second most important virtue of any relationship, which is patience, even when she was ready to give up on the relationship. He would counsel her, asking her to give it a little more time. There must be a way for them to connect. Somehow, he told her, he had to bring out that more outgoing part of Chelsea. A carnival arrived in town during the fall, giving an opportunity to both. Chelsea never went to any event and hesitated in reluctance, but Tony insisted, pursuing this issue with the reason being that this could change her. Soon, she said yes. Tony meant well, she thought, as she stepped between the frames, and after gently bumping into a glass wall and gasping, she felt around and found an empty space on her left, which she turned and followed. As more of her reflections popped up, her heart started beating faster. It wasn't because of this place. She remembered that she was shown the entrance and exit, with a map shown by Tony so as not to panic. No, it was because of Tony. She felt better around him. Was this love? Another glass wall, this time with the empty space on the right. She turned. He's cute. It was barely a whisper, yet it prevailed in this lonely place. Chelsea stopped and slowly turned. All she saw was her reflection, its back to her, with its head turned to look behind it at her. She breathed in relief and continued walking forward, believing that maybe it was just a thought that she echoed out loud. This was a shorter hallway with a longer glass wall peering into darkness, while 3 panes of mirrors had 3 Chelseas following the original to the next turn. Another left, and as she was rounding the corner, she noticed that one of the reflections delayed. She came back, all 3 reflections now keeping pace with her, yet the third one down seemed slower than the rest. It almost acted reluctant. Chelsea shook her head, the images mimicking her action, yet the third one delayed again when the action ceased. She moved away from this image and headed left. No glass walls with black backgrounds were in this section, only more mirrors. This time, there were 2 openings flanking a reflective wall, made larger than the other mirrors via an upward slope in the ceiling, with a cross-reeded pattern like that found in shower enclosures etched across its face. As she drew closer to it, the space opened up in a faceted half-octagon shape, like prongs of a tuning fork. that stabbed into their respective openings. 4 more reflections came into view, each one distorted by a warpage made underneath the reflective coating. One was short and seemed to jump from left to right. One was tall with a small head. One appeared to be getting bigger and wider. And one looked, well, like a normal reflection. Chelsea was curious as to what the image in the cross-reeded patterned mirror looked like. "I'm scared," there was that whisper again. Chelsea held her hand to her mouth. "I feel so exposed." "Another one!" She tightened her grip upon her lips. "This is stupid." Each of these voices, they sounded familiar. They sounded like the same person. It was her voice. Her mouth was starting to scream in pain, while a whine from within was blocked by the enclosing of her own jaw, aided by the vice grip of her hands. Despite this, it wasn't loud enough to drown out what she discerned as humming. She had not hummed since she was a child. Her eyes darted to the reflections, hoping that it was all just some elaborate prank, that there were other people in this place. At the same time, she hoped that no one else was here, as she didn't want to be seen like this. When she examined these facsimiles, one by one, they moved with her in almost all aspects save one. Their heads remained focused on her. Each one moved their own lips and gave a testimony, starting with the small moving reflection, seconded by the tall reflection with the small head, and nearing conclusion with the growing reflection. "I want to be brave. He can't see me like this. Damn it, what the hell is wrong with me?" That left the 4th one, the humming image. Chelsea slowly advanced on it, the humming increasing in volume. She was in front of this mirror, the reflection copying her every move down to the last muscle twitch. The sound it gave off reverberated not just upon the glass, but it was bouncing off of Chelsea's own body in synesthesia. It felt numbing, even comfortable, and then it stopped. Pain shot through Chelsea, and she clutched her side and her chest. She collapsed upon her knees, staring at the shoes of the humming image. It was still standing, looking down at her from some flat dimension. The humming came back, and the pain started to rescind. She stood back up and lifted her hand to brush away her hair. The humming image copied her movement, but when she lowered her hand back down, it kept its arm up and gave her a wave with scraggly fingers. Her nerve was failing, and she backed away. The humming lessened with the distance, but the rest of the voices increased as she retreated to the center. Chelsea felt herself bump into the cross-reeded reflection, and the voices quieted as suddenly as they had started, including the humming. She slowly pivoted, taking in the new reflection barely conceived by the cross-reed pattern. She could make out the dirty blonde follicles, the pale skin, the lack of clothes. She peered closer. placing her hands upon the glass. The distortion did the same, and she noticed that it appeared to hover above her, despite its fingers touching exactly where hers resided. There were its hazel eyes, looking upon her. There was its mouth, opened slightly like hers. Both were frozen in place, the distortion just barely a foot above her level. Condensation started to build before them, getting heavier until Chelsea could no longer see the distortion's face. She leaned closer, with the condensation spreading downwards as well as sideways. The distortion also leaned closer, seeming to plant its head almost directly on the glass. The condensation started to gather droplets, falling down the mirror in streaks. She could have sworn that she heard crying. The distortion reared back in an instant and slammed its face against the glass. Chelsea bounced back in fright. The distortion repeated the action again and again, moving faster with each strike. The condensation, once appearing white as a fog, was now turning red, just like the thing's face and hair as it struck once more, the heavy glass shaking under each impact. Chelsea cried out and ran, taking the left opening as a cracking sound emanated behind her. More mirrors, more distortions. Left, right, blackened glass, opening, and Chelsea clutching her chest once more as that pain returned. "Where's the end?" she called out. "Tony, someone, please." Now her head started to throb as tears streamed down her own face. The room seemed to spin. Nausea was seizing her, and she braced herself. Somewhere, close by, she could smell something familiar. Cotton candy, caramel apples, the moisture of a cooling atmosphere. She was close. She knew it. She felt against the mirrors, the twisted apparitions also reaching back for her. Another left, and she finally saw it. Just around the last corner, the exit was revealed perpendicular to the last mirror. Something dripped past her right eye and hit the floor. She took it as a tear and moved closer to the final stretch. Another sound of dripping liquid was heard near her left side, followed by another and another. And she looked down, illuminated by the last 3 lights before the exit. There was a growing dark splotch on the floor. She looked up, being greeted only by the dark gray ceiling and the final mirror. More drips. Confused, she brushed her hand through her hair, feeling something wet upon her scalp. She pulled her hand back before her eyes. Red blood? She sniffed it. But there was no metallic aroma. In fact, it smelled nice, like freshly shampooed hair. She felt around her head again. More red. This made no sense. She turned to the final mirror, the sight of her blonde hair, broken in so many places, with splotches of red, ramped up the already rapid drumming of her heart. What's worse was that these splotches appeared to be growing from around her head to the bulbs and tips, spreading even to the front. She reached up and grabbed her bangs, her morphing reflection doing the same. Pulling her hair close to her eye, she could see that it was still dirty blonde. The reflection watched her panicked state with intrigue, releasing its reddening hair as she released hers. Her panic drained from her in that moment, a strange peace starting to seize her as the reflection smiled confidently. The pain was gone. The fear was shrinking. A coolness surrounded her, and she stepped back, the reflection mirroring her movements. She turned to look at her exit, just as this strange doppelganger looked out hers. They exchanged a glance one last time. Then they both moved to the threshold. Satchly, Fane Bode walked out of the Hall of Mirrors, meeting Tony on the grass and kissing him on the lips. He pulled away, surprised at the sudden change in this young woman. "Hey babe, did you change your hair in the halls?" She smiled at him and caressed her auburn locks. "Yep. And then some. The spooky boogie. Halloween is a holiday that everyone knows well because it's the only time humans and spirits can coexist. Every year on October 31st, the dead rise from their graves and walk among us. The demons crawl out from the shadows because the holy light holds no sway, and even the monsters come out to play. At first, there was bloodshed on both sides, but it didn't take long for humans to adapt to the annual phenomenon by dressing up in silly costumes to blend in with the evil entities. And oddly enough, it worked. When bloodlust is in a demon's eyes, they fail to see the obvious. Over the years, the tradition morphed into a children's fairy tale. And these days, no one bats an eye if a spectral spook passes by. Adults took on a responsible attitude and allowed their little ones to go out and enjoy the night. Soon after, a festive event called trick-or-treating came roaring into every neighborhood around the world. Every girl and boy would get candy if they simply knocked on someone's door and said, "Trick or treat." The evil creatures paid no attention to the humans and their silly ways. They couldn't tell friend from foe when they wore the costumes, or why one of their own would knock on a stranger's door and not tear them apart. It was a farce that became institutionalized in its absurdity. To each their own. As the world grew older, so did the Halloween fairy tale. The traditional holiday of trick-or-treating morphed into a health-conscious day when adults decided that too much sugar was bad for their kids. It became a hot topic for years, but the day of righteousness came when many children became obese. In the end, the simple solution was fair and just. The little ones could still go out on Halloween night. But instead of getting candy, they would get vegetables instead. It wasn't a popular decision, but it became law and was written in stone. The evil spirits didn't care one way or the other because they floated on with their once-a-year Halloween romp, stomp, and boogie. They still couldn't tell humans from demons, but occasionally a slip-up would occur. If someone removed their costume or mask in a spirit's presence, they were torn limb from limb without a second thought. This was a rare occurrence, but an important reminder to parents and children everywhere to always wear their outfits, no matter what. In the wee hours on Lame Street, Timmy Lawson sat before his parents while his mom, Amanda, adjusted his vampire cape. She saw his legs thumping and asked, "Are you nervous about tonight?" Timmy widened his and replied, "No, Mom. My Dracula costume is the best on the block, and I'm ready to go." He parted his mouth slightly to show his fake vampire teeth and snarled, "Arr!" Amanda looked at her watch and bit her bottom lip. Her blonde hair hid her face, but Timmy could sense her apprehension. "I'll be fine, Mom. I know you will," Amanda said. "I'm your mother, and I'm allowed to worry." Timmy folded his arms and frowned. "Mom!" "Fine," Amanda blurted. "You better get going before it gets too late." Doves exploded in Timmy's heart, and he jumped out of his chair. "Yay!" His father, John, who was always overprotective, lowered his evening paper and warned, "Before you go, I want you to be on your best behavior. And remember, no candy or sweets." Amanda parted her golden locks and echoed, "That's right, Timmy. Only vegetables." Timmy lowered his head and slouched. "No one gives out candy anymore. It's against the law." John reached up to his clean-shaven face and removed his black glasses. "That's true, son. But in this world, there are still a lot of people out there who don't follow that law. Just remember, humans are just as bad as those monsters, and perhaps a bit worse." "Okay, Dad." Timmy didn't fully understand, but his dad was a wise man, and he'd be a fool not to listen. "Your father's right," Amanda said. "We just want you to be safe." She knelt and placed a gentle kiss on Timmy's forehead. "Now go have some fun." A bright sparkle filled Timmy's eyes, and an eruption of freedom sprang from his lungs. He grabbed his empty pumpkin bucket and raced through the front door without saying goodbye. The cool night air brushed over his skin like a masterful painter, lightly kissing the canvas with a boisterous color. Lame Street was bustling with children dressed in their favorite costumes: clowns, unicorns, beasts, and all. What an awesome night. Lame Street was a small suburban community where every house looked the same, with trimmed bushes, mowed lawns, and perfectly placed trash cans that stood next to the residential mailboxes by the sidewalk. a place where everyone drove a Prius and worked 9-to-5 jobs. Everything was routine, and that's the way they liked it. As Timmy took in the scene, he noticed that his friends were waiting for him at the end of the driveway. Alice was dressed as a ghost. Her white bed sheet, with the eyes cut out, showed a sliver of red hair, which was a dead giveaway. The werewolf was Fred. There was no mistaking that, because he had an uneven stride and often lingered behind the others to hide his anxiety. Then there was Carrie, dressed in a silky black dress with a matching pointy hat, long fake nose, and a huge brown wart stuck to her right cheek. She was a witch. "What took you so long?" Carrie asked. "We've been waiting here forever." "Sorry," Timmy said, walking towards them. "My parents, I'm gonna stop you right there, pal," Alice fired. "We all know your parents are a bag of dicks, so let's go before the night ends. The other kids are already going home." Carrie gave Timmy a wry smile as their eyes met, and he took the lead down the sidewalk. "Okay then," Timmy said, with rosy cheeks. "Let's have some fun and get as many vegetables as we can." I don't like vegetables," Fred stuttered, bringing up the rear. The first house they visited was Mr. Sullivan's, their 4th grade math teacher. Timmy knocked 3 times on his oak door, and Mr. Sullivan laughed when it swung open. "Ah, what do we have here? A witch, vampire, ghost, and a werewolf. Trick or treat, Mr. Sullivan," Carrie yelled, holding out her black plastic cauldron. Sullivan smiled and said, "Well, don't you all look so cute?" He reached around the corner and revealed a huge basket of apples. "Here you go, children. I'm afraid I'm out of veggies this evening, so these juicy apples will have to do." Timmy extended a shaky hand and swallowed deep. "My parents said only vegetables. Fruits and veggies are a heaven's delight," Sullivan groaned. "I don't see the harm as long as it's not candy." He pushed the basket further toward the kids. Alice grabbed one and quickly took a bite. The sweet juices dripped down her chin, and she smiled. "See, they're not laced with poison, so grab one and let's go." Well, you wouldn't know right away, because the poison takes a few minutes to kill you anyway," Fred said, peering through his wolf mask. They all shared a laugh, grabbed an apple, and headed for the next house. "Thanks, Mr. Sullivan. See you back in school." "Okay, children," he said, watching them leave. "Be safe, and don't forget that quiz on Monday." The second house belonged to Jane Thatcher, leader of the neighborhood gossip group. When she answered the door, the kids saw a huge bucket filled with baby carrots. "Hello, kids. You all look nice." Alice held out her ghost bucket and watched Jane throw one baby carrot in. Plop! Alice narrowed her eyes and asked, "What happened to the big carrots we got last year?" Jane drew her lips in and took a deep breath. The kids leaned backward and flared their nostrils because her breath smelled like an ashtray. That's because she smoked a pack a day. Well, times are tough, and you can't blame an old lady for trying to save a little. That's okay, Timmy said, holding out his pumpkin bucket. It's better than nothing. Fred held out his wolf bucket and stepped back when he saw Jane place 3 baby carrots inside. He blinked rapidly behind his mask before noticing her ashen breath upon his brow. There you go, sweetie. I think your costume looks the best. And everyone knows I like my men with a lot of hair. Ha, ha, ho. When he saw her yellow-stained teeth up close, Fred ran away. The others quickly followed, but they couldn't hide their laughter. Don't forget to come back now, you hear? Jane yelled. That was gross, Fred moaned. Ha, 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 laughed Alice. I think she likes you. Timmy couldn't uncurl his smiling lips. No, I think she loves you. She wants to pet your fur, Alice scoffed. All right, guys, Carrie urged, taking off her hat. That's enough. Fred didn't deserve that, and we have no right to make fun. Fred removed his fury gloves and shook the sweat out. He shuffled his feet, cleared his throat, and coughed. Ew. I can still taste her rotten breath. Timmy removed his fake fangs and said, Carrie's right. I'm sorry for laughing at you, but it was a little funny. Yeah, Alice said, lifting her bed sheet to suck in the night air. We were just pulling your leg. We're sorry. Fred swayed from side to side and said, It's fine. I guess it was a little funny. You know what we need? Alice muttered. We need some candy. That would be awesome. We can't have candy, Timmy said, looking at the pavement. Besides, no one around here gives it out anyway. Carrie nodded and gave Alice a pat on the shoulder. You're right. Getting vegetables every year sucks. And it would be nice to have some sweets. Yeah, Fred agreed. Suddenly, a deep, shallow whisper blew by the children, like a small flower floating in the air on a warm summer day. Did someone say candy? Stepping out from the nearby bushes was a small, slender man. His face was a carved pumpkin, and he wore a black top hat with a matching suit with gold trim, boots, and white pants. He held an antique lantern to light his way. The children were speechless. They had never seen a costume like his. Who are you? Timmy asked, breaking the silence. His eyes were fixated on the mysterious figure. Me? I'm Mr. Spooky, silly, he said, bowing. He wobbled over and peered into their plastic buckets. What's this? An apple? Carrots? Where are the sweet treats? Alice placed her hands on her hips, and her sheet ruffled in the wind. We're not allowed to have them. Where have you been hiding? Under a rock or something? No, Mr. Spooky said. He held up his lantern and uttered, I've been locked away in darkness for the longest time, but I found this light, and it has guided me here. Are you a demon? Fred asked, taking a step back. I told you already. My name is Mr. Spooky, and there is no other. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of lollipops. I have all the sweet treats you could ask for. Alice widened her eyes, and the sheet covering her face became moist at the mouth. Wow! Timmy shook his head when he heard his parents' words echo. No candy, only vegetables. The thought sent a river of snakes sliding down his side. We're not allowed to have any candy, Mr. Spooky. What? Mr. Spooky shrieked. No candy? That's absurd. Don't you know what day this is? Carrie stepped forward and brushed Mr. Spooky's hand away. She didn't want to hear any more of his nonsense. Look, Timmy's right. We can't have candy, no matter how much we want it. It's the law. If we break it, we'll be grounded forever. How rude, Mr. Spooky said. No child should ever be grounded. My candy will free you and make you fly like the birds in the sky. Look, man, we appreciate your offer, but we need to go now, Fred said. The children turned their backs to Mr. Spooky and left him alone with an upside-down smile. They didn't mean to hurt his feelings, but in their defense, they were trying to do the right thing. Mr. Spooky thought and thought as the children walked away. No child should ever go without sweet treats. I must change their minds. Wait! He called out. The kids stopped and turned. I have a spooktacular idea. We should do the spooky boogie dance. It always cheers me up. And then maybe you will have some delicious treats. Before the children could say anything, Mr. Spooky stuck out his butt and twirled around like a dancing clown. Timmy, Alice, Fred, and Carrie had a strong urge to run away. But they stood firmly and watched Mr. Spooky because he was just too darn cute. Before they knew it, he broke out into a song. Everybody twirl your body. Do the spooky boogie. Clap, clap, clap. Throw your hands up now. And clap, clap, clap. Stick that booty out. And clap, clap, clap. Do the spooky boogie. Shuffle here and shuffle there. Do the spooky boogie. The spooky boogie. Mr. Spooky's song and dance intoxified the air like a poison mist, and the children soon found themselves twirling and singing along. Their minds were like a lost ship sailing into uncharted waters. The discovery of a newfound rebellion was at hand. Within minutes, candy rained down, much to Mr. Spooky's delight. Oh, how wonderful! Sweet treats from the heavens above. Dig in now and enjoy the splendor. Timmy clenched his stomach and stiffened his jaw. No? Our parents said no, but I say yes. What good is Halloween if we can't enjoy a sweet snack? Mr. Spooky spun around and threw more candy at the children. Alice was the first child to give in to the wicked bliss. She picked up a chocolate bar and took a big bite. Oh, this is wonderful! Fred grabbed a piece of Laffy Taffy and bit into the sticky goodness. As it stretched an arm's length, he smiled and said, "This is good." Carrie and Timmy held out the longest, but after seeing their friends give in, they had to sample the goods. They grabbed a peanut butter bar and crunched down. No words came, but Mr. Spooky could tell they loved it by their upward smiles. "That's it, my lovelies. Eat. Eat until you've had your fill of sugary sweets." Mr. Spooky twirled and swirled like a ballerina and watched the children devour the candy like a pack of wild dogs. They were in it deep now and munched away every ounce of the candy. They ate so much that they fell to the pavement. They were plump, juicy, and ripe. "Now that you've all had your fill, I suppose I shall have mine," Mr. Spooky growled, walking around their fallen bodies. "You all look so delicious." Timmy rolled over and mumbled, "No, you can't do this." Mr. Spooky cackled at Timmy's protest. He raised his lantern and smashed it down on his head. The impact did nothing more than shut his mouth. With another twirl, a thick plume of purple smoke filled the air, and Mr. Spooky transformed into a hideous demon. His sweet pumpkin face gave birth to devious evil that was hidden all along. He ripped his suit off to reveal a pair of old brown overalls that covered a dusty white shirt. His voice had also changed. It was deeper and more demonic. "Yummy, yummy. You children are now full of sugar, just the way I like my sweet treats." Mr. Spooky reached into his overalls and pulled out 2 sharp kitchen knives that twinkled in the moonlight. Now, stay still while I cut you up to pieces. I can't eat you whole after all. Ha 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 ha." Alice still had a piece of chocolate in her mouth, and as Mr. Spooky walked towards her, knives dangling by his side, she spat out the sugary treat. He carelessly stepped into the sticky goo and fell with a thunderous thud. His blade slid in front of Timmy and Carrie, and they grabbed them with lightning speed. Fred exploded to his feet and tackled Mr. Spooky so he couldn't escape. You're not going anywhere." Even he was surprised at his newfound courage. "That's right," Alice yelled, standing. "The one thing about sugar is that it messes with your mind and makes you want more." "Yeah," Timmy said, holding his head. "And we are still hungry." "What?" Mr. Spooky shouted. "You can't do this to me." Mr. Spooky writhed back and forth, trying to break free from Fred's grasp, but it was useless. Timmy and Carrie seized the moment, plunged their blades into Mr. Spooky's head, and cut away huge chunks of pumpkin slices. He screamed like a dying cat. Alice and Fred stuck their mouths inside his skull and drank deeply with their sticky lips. They spat out the seeds and laughed. Timmy and Carrie continued carving away until their sugar rush melted away and ate what was left. The last thing Mr. Spooky heard was someone chomping down on his skull. Later that night, the children agreed to return to Timmy's house to watch some scary movies. They promised each other that they would never talk about what had happened. When they walked through the door, Timmy's parents asked, "Did you all eat your vegetables?" In one collective voice, they said, "Yes, we did." These old bones, flowery carvings, adorned the strangely shaped old furniture and caught Jacob's eye. Happy cherubs were encrusted with dust, and on the walls, the springtime imagery of oil paintings was draped in cobwebs hanging like veils. The floorboards creaked, and the weight of dust and neglect hung everywhere. But still, Jacob couldn't help but explore and get lost in the place, looking for creepy old things and ghosts. At last, he made his way up to the attic, which was pierced here and there by shafts of dust-specked morning light shining through the windows. It was filled with boxes and countless old and broken things, and it smelled musty and faintly of the sweet smell of rot and aged tobacco. Altogether, the scent spoke of a long history and was not entirely unpleasant. Stacks of magazines were spilled on the ground, and a ratty mannequin was wearing a straw-colored blonde wig. On one side, a line of well-worn teddy bears of various sizes stared back at him. Suddenly, his foot slipped on something, and looking down, he saw the parchment-like paper of architectural diagrams lying buried under a thick layer of dust. Then, at a small desk nearby, a black and white photo album lay open, revealing pictures of distant relatives he had never heard of. All in all, it felt like a strange old museum filled with oddities from centuries past. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something truly creepy was indeed hidden here, and he wasn't sure that he wanted to play hide and seek with it. He was about to turn and leave when suddenly he felt goosebumps on his neck. He heard a girl's voice sweetly humming a song he did not know. Then he saw her playfully skipping towards him, wearing an old-fashioned dress. She shimmered transparently, light blue and opalescent. She was swinging her arms by her sides, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she peered at him. And somehow, he forgot to be afraid. "Hi, my name's Jacob. Aren't you a ghost?" he asked her, his brow furrowed. "It's so very nice to meet you, Jacob. I'm Mildred," the little girl said elegantly, before curtsying. "And yes, I am a ghost. Isn't it obvious?" she added, with a teasing smirk that somehow got under his skin. "Don't tease me. It's not every day that one meets a ghost. You know, that's true. And in my case, you can only see me on Halloween. It's when I get to play for just one day a year," Mildred said, and then she jumped up into the air, her ethereal substance warping and elongating, rapidly funneling into the ear of a nearby teddy bear. "Why, hello there," she said in a mock teddy bear voice, waving the bear's paw. "That's so cool," Jacob said. "Yes, it's quite fun. I can animate a lot of things. You want I should go into your parents' car next?" she asked, with a mischievous grin. "Nah, I don't think they'd appreciate that," Jacob said pensively. "But let's totally find other things to try." Then, as Mildred stepped out of the bear, Jacob paused a while before speaking. "Hey, why don't you come trick-or-treating with me tonight? You can use the biggest bear and pretend it's a costume." "What a great idea. I can't believe I never thought of that. Or maybe I just never had anyone to go with," Mildred said, her expression growing bashful. "Well, you've got me now, Mildred. Jacob, come down. We're going to go visit the town," his mother called out from the floor below. "Hey, I'll be back real soon, okay?" Jacob said. "Right. I'll be here waiting for you," Mildred answered with a nod. Later in the day, it had grown dark, and Jacob came up the ladder, holding a lantern in one hand. "My mom's got a bunch of candles burning downstairs. She thought that it would be cool to use candles inside the pumpkins. Some of them are scented, but I hope you don't mind the smell. Your mom sounds pretty fun. And also, I can't smell, silly. I'm a ghost." "Right," Jacob said, slapping his forehead. "Hey, Jacob, I have a secret to show you. How about I show you my favorite toy?" Mildred skipped over to the back of the room and into a large chest hidden behind piles of boxes. The chest creaked open, and Jacob went over to see what was inside. He was taken aback at seeing an old skeleton. It seemed small, like a child's skeleton, and he realized this was where the sickly smell of rot had been coming from. "Mildred, is it yours?" Jacob asked, eyes wide open, his throat growing dry, and his pulse running a little faster. "Yes, it is. Unfortunately, I died here under circumstances most foul. It's why I'm a ghost haunting this place, you silly boy," she said teasingly. "But that was a long time ago. Since then, I've grown so bored, and this was one of my most fun toys. Truly, I've had such fun scaring people who saw me through the attic windows," she added with a giggle. "I guess that could be fun," Jacob said, unsure what to say. Then she continued, "But here, I'll show you. Now, don't you get spooked on me," she said, jumping into the skeleton. There was a sudden buzz of static electricity, and Jacob's lantern shut off. The room was now only lit by the otherworldly blue glow of the animated skeleton. "Isn't it fun and creepy?" he heard Mildred's voice say with a giggle, seeing the little girl's skeleton come out of the chest and walk towards him in the dark with a lurching gait. Jacob was seized with a sudden terror. Had she been friendly all along, just to lure him here and do goodness knew what to him? Jacob ran away, screaming and knocking things over. Immediately, The old bones clattered to the floor. I didn't mean to scare you so much. Please, please come back, he heard Mildred's voice say with a whimper as he hurried down the attic steps. Please, Jacob, he heard her beg again from further away, her voice no less desperate for being fainter. It was only with great effort that he finally screwed on his courage and came back up the ladder. His lantern was lit again when he carefully emerged into the attic. Finally, he saw Mildred waiting for him there, wiping ghostly tears from her cheeks, an apologetic look on her face. I was so worried you wouldn't come back, and I'm so sorry for scaring you. I guess I came up with some strange games all by myself. It's okay, and I'm so sorry you were lonely, Mildred. But now you've got me to talk to. Oh, won't you please come by and talk to me again later? I can still speak to you on other days, even though you won't be able to see me. I promise I'll come by as often as I can, Jacob said solemnly, and Mildred gave him a sweet smile. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, Jacob, she said softly. Wanna go trick-or-treating? Get into the bear, and I'll meet you outside in half an hour. Deal, Mildred answered with a grin. Cerulean. The door is cerulean, a bright and vibrant blue. But really, it is the color of my sudden uneasiness. The feeling creeps up me slowly, jumps out at me dauntingly, and I am frozen in it. If the door were a mirror, and how I wish it were as innocent as a mirror, I would see my face reflected back to me, and it would tell me to run. I'm not sure what's more jarring. The fact that this door is a clashing contrast to the rest of the library decor, or the fact that I've never noticed the path we took to get here before. I suppose there are better things to do freshman year than look for the oddities and notice the details inside the university library. Or maybe it's the subtle shift in his gaze that is so jarring, the way his grip on me transforms, and the way his voice now suddenly holds something heavy, concealed behind his hardened whispers. It seems impossible to retreat now. And even if I had the courage to turn and run away, following my screaming gut all the way down the stairs and out the library doors, there is still a part of me that is curious, hopeful, lustful. Wasn't dating a professor supposed to feel dangerous? Wasn't that how it felt just moments ago when he'd pressed me up against the wall of shelved books downstairs and kissed me? And I thought to myself, is there anything more thrilling than this? Wasn't it that same exciting feeling that I felt when he'd whispered into my neck that he had a secret to show me? And I eagerly followed him up the stairs. I had thought it was thrilling before, when we were nothing but flirty eyes and lingering bodies inside an empty lecture hall room, neither of us willing to be the first to say goodbye. He'd chipped away at his desk with his nails, while I'd fingered it, tracing circles and pathways across the dark mahogany wood, each stroke a question. What would your skin think of this? Meanwhile, our mouths said frivolous things, silly words about the weather and hometowns and restaurants off campus. Things that had nothing to do with anthropology assignments. Between those words, our silences begged the other to stay just a little longer, so we could eventually, maybe, use our mouths for other things. We were testing the waters then, seeing how far we would swim out before turning back. It turned out this professor could swim all the way out to my dorm room, somewhere I'd never seen another professor go. "Let me take you to the library tonight," he'd whispered. "I can get us in after it's closed." His voice had been desperate and demanding, like I could break him if I said no. I wanted to savor the power I had over him in that moment, like licking the peanut butter off of a spoon. But there was no chance I would say no. I would have given him my heart on a silver platter right then. I was breathless when I said, "What time?" Hours later, under a hazy orange street lamp, I'd watched his fingers unlock the double doors like a jungle cat eyeing its prey. I wanted to lunge at them, feel them unlocking my body. But even then, just moments ago, I still hadn't been sure. That dangerous, thrilling ripple somewhere within me, undulating like a wave. There is nothing illegal about doing the things we both wanted to do. Just a school policy that both of us treated like nothing but a suggestion. When the doors pulled open, the scent of the library engulfed me. I read somewhere that the smell of old books is actually the smell of organic matter reacting to light and heat, a decomposition of wood pulp. But really, it is the scent of my body on fire. When I told him, he only smiled, running his finger across the spines as he guided me down one of the aisles. All of these stories dying beneath our fingertips, and we get to live a whole other life just by splitting them open. When I'd heard those words, I thought he was a ixy, young, anthropologic, literary genius, and I couldn't believe he'd chosen me. In that moment, I was certain I'd let him split me open and read me like one of those books. But now, there is an edginess to this thrill, a sense of danger that hadn't surfaced yet, a creature rising from the midnight zone, hairs standing up on the back of my neck, or is that his breath? I feel my bones run cold, like I am standing on a precipice, and if I open that door, I might free fall right into the sky. I've never showed anyone this before, he lies, but I barely register his words, my mind lost in a tumbleweed of disregarded warnings from my mother, from friends, from school advisories, the university campus newspaper. 3 freshman girls still missing. He wraps his arms around my waist, like we are comfortable lovers now. like the one kiss we shared downstairs turned our student-teacher relationship into something more intimate. I lean into it, still playing the part of the brave girl. I thought I wanted that. I followed him up those stairs, wanting just that. There is still a part of me that does. Fear has stolen many of these experiences from me. And I'd promised this year would be different, didn't I? I shouldn't take hold of the doorknob, but I do. And I hear him giggle behind me. It sounds like victory. It sounds like, good girl. There's no creak when I turn it. The handle glides smoothly, and I hear it unlatch. In another life, I push the door open, and there is a room with a small round table sitting in the middle. It is adorned with a white cloth and candles, and there is a violinist playing a soft, soothing song. From somewhere, a perfectly prepared steak meal is delivered, and we slice it slowly with our knives while drinking wine and slurring out delectable secrets. In that life, we make love above 1,000 love stories bound in leather and spend years happily together. After I graduate, we get married and have 2 children, Olive and Iris. We grow old together, and tonight becomes a treasured story about the romantic night when we fell in love, a story that belongs in one of those books downstairs. In another life, I open the door, and there is a boring room with a game of chess set up for us on a table in the corner. We play a few rounds, him winning twice before he finally lets me win once. I pretend to love it, and we date in secret for a few months before things fizzle out. Maybe there's a dramatic ending, and I spend a summer lovesick and cursing his name, knowing I'll never forget the year I dated my college professor. In another life, I let the door handle go and sprint down the stairs, running faster than I ever have all the way back to my dorm room. I tell my roommate all about it and wonder if I let my fear make a fool out of myself again. In this life, I push the door open, and there is a room that has no table, no white cloth, and no chessboard. There is a room with 4 walls, ones I wish had mirrors on them so I could see my reflection. The realization settling in my eyes would tell me there's a shark in the water, to swim fast, even though I know it's too late. They would tell me the truth, that I might never see the color cerulean again. The shadow, the night, was silent, draped in an inky darkness that swallowed the world outside the small security room. I sat alone, surrounded by an array of flickering screens that illuminated my face in a ghastly blue glow. The hum of the surveillance equipment was the only sound in the room, its monotony broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling or the distant wail of a siren. I was the lone sentinel, tasked with safeguarding the premises during the bewitching hours of the night shift. Hours had passed since I settled into my chair, my eyes diligently scanning the labyrinthine halls and desolate rooms of the building. Everything appeared as it should, empty, lifeless, and eerily quiet. But as the clock ticked deeper into the night, a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The air seemed charged with a palpable tension, as if something sinister lurked just beyond the reach of the camera lenses. I leaned forward, adjusting my seat and peering closer at one of the monitors. In the dim light, the corridor appeared to stretch endlessly, the flickering fluorescent lights casting long, ominous shadows on the walls. As my eyes darted across the screen, I saw a movement, a mere blur at the edge of the frame. My breath caught in my throat, and I focused on the camera, my heart pounding. There, in the grainy black and white footage, was a figure. It was tall and gaunt, its features obscured by shadows. The figure moved slowly, almost purposefully, down the hallway, its gait uneven and unsettling. I squinted, trying to make out any distinguishing features, but the face remained hidden, shrouded in darkness. A shiver crept up my spine as I grabbed the radio at my side. "Central, this is security. I've got a visual on an unidentified person in Corridor C. I need backup." Static crackled before a voice responded, thick with sleep. "Copy that. We're sending someone your way. Stay on the line." I nodded, my eyes never leaving the screen. The figure continued its eerie saunter, disappearing momentarily from one camera's view, only to reappear on another. It seemed to be toying with me, always staying just out of clear sight. A phantom in the night. Minutes dragged on like hours as I awaited the arrival of my colleagues. The figure persisted in its haunting stroll, growing closer to the main entrance with every passing moment. I gripped the edges of the desk, my knuckles turning white, and watched in dread as it reached the lobby. As if sensing my gaze, the figure turned its head toward the camera, and I gasped. Its eyes, 2 points of cold, blue light, glowed in the darkness, fixated on the lens, as if it could see me. I recoiled, my heart pounding so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. "Central, it's looking at the camera," I stammered into the radio. "I need someone here now." The response was a garbled mess of static and fragmented words. Desperation clawed at me as I watched the figure approach the security room. It moved with an unnatural grace, its movements silent and deliberate. My fingers fumbled for the door lock, and I managed to secure it just as the figure reached the hallway outside. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room, and I pressed myself against the wall, my breath shallow and rapid. I could hear its footsteps now, soft but deliberate as it approached the door. Each step sent a chill down my spine, and I prayed that the lock would hold. The figure stopped just outside the door, and I held my breath, willing myself to be invisible. Through the frosted glass window, I saw its silhouette, tall and imposing. Its hand reached out, fingers curling around the doorknob. I bit down hard on my lip to stifle a scream. My entire body tensed, ready to bolt at a moment's notice. Seconds stretched into an eternity before the figure withdrew its hand, and I heard its footsteps fading away down the corridor. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The building seemed to groan and sigh around me, the very walls whispering secrets that I couldn't comprehend. Summoning my courage, I cautiously unlocked the door and peeked into the hallway. It was empty, devoid of any signs of the figure. I hesitated for a moment before venturing out, my flashlight casting shaky beams of light across the walls. The air was thick with a sense of dread, and I could feel unseen eyes watching my every move. I retraced the figure's steps, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. Each flickering light and distant sound sent my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed, that the figure was still there, just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I finally reached the lobby, my eyes scanning the area for any signs of movement. The room was still, the silence broken only by the distant wail of sirens. I let out a shaky breath, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Whatever had been in the building with me was gone, but its presence lingered, a haunting memory etched into the very walls. I made my way back to the security room, my steps quickening with each passing moment. As I entered, I glanced at the monitors, half expecting to see the figure staring back at me. But the screens were empty, showing only the empty halls and deserted rooms. I sank into my chair, my hands trembling as I reached for the radio. Central, this is security. I think it's gone. I don't know what it was, but it's gone now. The response was a crackle of static. And then a voice came through, tinged with concern. Are you all right? Do you need medical assistance? I hesitated for a moment before shaking my head, even though I felt far from all right. No, I'm fine. Just shaken up. I'll be okay. The sun began to rise, casting a faint light through the windows and dispelling the darkness that had settled over the building. My relief was palpable, but the memory of that night would forever haunt my dreams. I had come face to face with something beyond explanation, something that defied logic and reason. As the day shift arrived to relieve me, I gathered my belongings and made my way to the exit. The building once familiar and comforting, now felt alien and menacing. I stepped out into the daylight, the warmth of the sun, a stark contrast to the cold grip of fear that still clung to me. I glanced back at the building one last time, my eyes drawn to the security room window. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of movement inside, a shadowy figure standing amidst the monitors. But it was gone in an instant, leaving me to wonder if it had ever been there at all. I walked away, my footsteps quickening with every step. The world around me seemed to blur, the events of the night replaying in my mind like a nightmare. I didn't know what I had encountered, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. Some things, it seemed, were better left in the darkness, where they belonged. Vice, news, real talk, the art of soul swapping. New research proposes a radical solution for the estimated 13 million people who unwittingly lost their souls in last year's Black Friday mishap. While hell isn't offering refunds anytime soon, a soul swap isn't out of the question, says Sam Ackerman, sole author on the study and CEO of ExoSouls. His paper, titled Devilish Details, a sparse Bayesian learning framework for enhancing the ExoSouls algorithm, is published this week in Chaos, a non-linear journal of translational science. In it, Ackerman claims to have unraveled the 2-for-1 soul swap terms and conditions of the Philadelphia Screamer. He then introduces a machine learning model designed to identify likely victims who have yet to come forward, as well as predict the likelihood of unsold souls going to hell anyway. Ackerman goes on to suggest that when combined with his proprietary ExoSouls algorithm, this novel framework can accurately pair last year's Black Friday victims with unsold hellbound souls, a finding that could give hope to millions. Vice's own Brett Love spoke with Ackerman while putting his updated soul swap theory to the test in real time. This interview has not been edited for clarity or length because hard-hitting journalism has no filters. Q&A with Brett Love and Sam Ackerman. Brett: Love: so, how about you tell me why I'm stuck in Philadelphia traffic with a conch shell in my front seat? Sam Ackerman: great, right to the point. So, that conch shell is there to help you hear the screams of the damned. Cupping your hands to your ears is also an option, but that's more prone to error. I don't know if I like the sound of that. No one does. Now, as for the Philadelphia traffic, we need a bit more context for that one. You remember last year when the real Burning Man, who screams eternal, or simply the Philadelphia Screamer. Most people just call him Phil now. Sure, let's call him Phil. Anyway, after Phil showed up last year, screaming and burning and chained to the William Penn statue atop Philadelphia's City Hall with that Black Friday offer flaming across his torso. People were understandably curious. So, of course, someone flies a drone up there to get a closer look at this giant chained to the Will Penn statue. And forgive me for the recap, but let's not forget how incredible that moment was and still is today. I mean, he's bound there, like Prometheus, except instead of eagles tearing out his liver only for it to regrow, there's a flaming message that burns to life again and again, letter by letter, from neck to navel. It's Hell's version of a flashing neon sign, and it says, "Two souls take the place of one in Black Friday's shadow. Make your wish known, and they shall pay the price." Right. And who can blame people for thinking it's your classic 2-for-1 Black Friday deal? Exactly. Last year's tragic miscalculation really just came down to otherwise honest folk simply hoping to cheat Satan on one day of the year with no consequences whatsoever. They thought they could make their wildest wish come true while sacrificing the souls of two of their worst enemies. When you think about it, the choice of holiday makes perfect sense too. Halloween is too on the nose, and Christmas is off limits. But Thanksgiving is, well, it's a gobbledygook of whitewashed genocide and glorified capitalism. So why wouldn't Satan want to piggyback on that? Just look, and you'll find him in the eyes of crazed consumers everywhere, in that Black Friday aftermath of filth left behind by the world's worst holiday. Wow. You really hate Thanksgiving. What about cranberry sauce? You'll cut out that last part, right? I don't want to turn off potential ExoSouls clients, sure. But you still haven't told me why I'm stuck in Philly traffic this Black Friday. Oh, right. So we already covered Phil, and the rest comes down to word origin. Before Black Friday found its way into the common parlance, it was used by Philadelphia traffic cops who were fed up with the crowds after Thanksgiving. This was back in the 1960s, so it all comes down to a simple misunderstanding. And hell probably wasn't trying to be nefarious here. I mean, they sent their screaming giant to Philadelphia, after all. They just thought that's where Black Friday applied. So they thought it was still 1960-something, even though Phil arrived in 2022. You're talking about relativity and time dilation, right? Yes. No. Not really. Listen, the theory of special relativity is a wonderful lens for examining the wonders of the universe, but it likely holds no meaning in hell. Perhaps whoever sent Phil is forced to experience a distorted sense of time passing on Earth to further highlight their own eternity in hell. A form of time torture, if you will. But that's just speculation. something that future research could explore. Regardless, my current research strongly suggests that Hell's Black Friday deal only applies to Philadelphia traffic. What do you mean by suggests? I mean, I'm about to test your soul swap theory here, so you're sure, right? Please don't call it swap. I never mention that term once in my paper, and I don't know why the media keeps throwing it out there. This isn't the movie Freaky Friday. We're not switching souls or bodies or anything like that. Say exchange if you must, but it's in the company name, Exo Souls, with exo meaning external and souls meaning plural. It's a simple 2-for-1 exchange, and at no point do you swap souls with anyone else. Now, do you have the Exo Souls app installed on your phone, Brett? Yeah, but I'm asking if you're sure your soul swap. Is your theory correct? Listen, there are 1,000 different researchers giving 1,000 different reasons for last year's Black Friday mishap. They blame it on wildly irresponsible statistics, poor reading skills, TikTok trends, rising obesity rates, or excess levels of tryptophan. But not one has demonstrated as high a degree of correlation as I have. I'm sure you've already read the paper, but let me offer a quick recap for those who haven't. We know for a fact that people who have turned their souls see themselves with their eyes sewn shut every time they look in a mirror, while most hell-bound people don't advertise that about themselves. We also know that there was a spike in self-reported eyes sewn shut sightings last year, likely due to outrage over misinterpreting Hell's Black Friday offer. Now, I used those reports as a starting point for constructing my sparse Bayesian learning framework while accounting for normal levels of dishonesty. In addition to identifying unreported victims, my model also identifies those with unsold souls who have high hell-bound risk. However, the truly surprising finding comes when looking at the distribution of likely victims. It's a fairly regular distribution. That is, it's standard for places other than the city of brotherly love. More specifically, for places devoid of Philly traffic. What I'm saying is high-traffic Philadelphia areas are almost blank spots on that distribution map of likely victims from last year's Black Friday mishap. That's where people were able to take advantage of Hell's 2-for-1 offer, because that's the area that corresponds to Hell's definition of Black Friday. It's an incredibly strong correlation. And that's why you're stuck in Philly traffic this Black Friday, Brett. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think so. Maybe you could give a quick refresher on correlation versus causation. No, we don't want to risk traffic clearing up on us. Just Google ice cream drowning deaths after the interview. So, without further ado, could you please open the ExoSouls app, Brett? First, I've got to ask, why are we doing this over the phone? Why wouldn't you agree to a face-to-face interview? Selling one's soul can't be done in company. If you open the app, I'll guide you through it. Okay, App is open. Hey, nice interface. Kind of like Twitter, with less hate speech. And I just looked in the rear view mirror. I can say with relief that the eyes of my reflection aren't sewn shut. Well, we haven't done anything yet. To verify, can you tell me how many active users you see in the ExoSouls app? I see 437. Now it's 443. Hang on. Shouldn't the numbers be doubling with the 2-for-1 soul swap? Good. I see those same numbers. And remember, it's not a swap. The numbers aren't doubling for a couple reasons. First, not everyone is selling their souls simultaneously. Second, a number of users regain their souls with each transaction. Obviously, the total number of souls sold must increase over time, which is great for ExoSouls in terms of active users. But wait, you said some users regain their souls? Could you explain? You know it's reversible, right? It's in my chaos paper. I even mention it in the abstract. Sure, yeah, I know. But it may be worth explaining for the sake of the interview. Okay, traffic is looking steady, so I'll give a quick example. Hell's Black Friday 2-for-1 offer requires 3 souls. 1 soul to take advantage of the offer, and 2 more souls to pay the price. So, let's call the souls A, B, and C, and say they're all stuck in Philadelphia traffic. Imagine that A makes its soul-selling wish, which marks souls B and C as bound for hell when their time on earth is done. Now, say B, whose soul has already been sold, still wants to take advantage of the 2-for-1 offer. Hell owns B, but Hell doesn't care about individuals. Hell's goal is to simply gather as many souls as possible, so it would gladly trade B for 2 unclaimed souls. Soul A is still unclaimed, but we need another unclaimed soul to make B's transaction possible. That's where Soul D comes in. If Souls A and D reach out to Hell and offer their souls in place of B's, Hell can't refuse. Sure, it loses a soul, but it also gains 2. And Hell must grant B a wish for the 2-to-1 offer to still hold true. Within this scenario, the first wish led to 2 hell-bound souls, while the second wish results in a total of 3 hell-bound souls within the group. You can see that the number didn't double in this instance. Of course, that number could easily keep doubling if everyone keeps making the selfish decision. But that's the beauty of the ExoSouls app. Its algorithm was already working to balance mutual and self-interests. But this latest enhancement connects Black Friday victims with likely hellbound to boost cooperation and user engagement. Does that answer your reversibility question, Brett? Yeah, and then some. But I mean that in a good way. You have me convinced. How do I get started? Let's see. The algorithm wants you to sell your soul in the traditional way first. That means no taking advantage of the 2-for-1 offer just yet. After that, exo-souls will pair you with 2 unclaimed souls, so you can regain your soul. Wow, I hesitate to use the word luck, but this is a rare instance in my experience. At the risk of sounding redundant, I'd even go so far as to say ultra rare. Brett, you get to make 2 incredible, near back-to-back wishes and still keep your soul this Black Friday. Oh man, I haven't thought about what I want. What do I click to make it happen? Haha, you don't click anything. Exo-souls points you to the best possible outcome. But this next part is low-tech, a tried-and-true method as old as mankind itself. First, what you want to do is pick up that conch shell from the passenger seat and hold it to your ear. Then, I want you to listen for the screams of the damned. Okay? I've got you on speakerphone and the conch shell to my ear. Do you hear the screams yet, Brett? Maybe. But that could just be Phil on top of City Hall. I think he's nearby. Forget about Phil. Think about the worst moment of your life. Relive it. Imagine that conch shell is a calcified ear that can hear your innermost thoughts. Whoa, I hear it. Jesus Christ. Keep that shell to you ear, Brett. Now tell me, how does traffic look? Oh God. Focus, Brett. How's traffic? Okay. It's nearly at a standstill. Good. Now, I want you to close your eyes nearly all the way until you're looking through your eyelashes. Then, stare at your reflection in the rear-view mirror. Are you doing it? Yes. But I don't like this anymore. Don't stop. You're nearly there. Promise your soul for your heart's desire. I don't know what I want. Just wish for the first thing on your mind. There are no wrong answers here, Brett. If it's in hell's power to grant it, you'll get your wish. Oh man, I did it. The shell is silent and... oh God, that's awful. What do you see? I see my own eyes sewn shut in the mirror. How is that possible? Yeah, no one ever gets used to it. But the good news is I'm working on augmented reality glasses to add eyes to mirrors for those who've sold their souls. And the even better news is you've managed to successfully sell your soul. Now, exo-souls should find a pair of unclaimed souls for you soon here. We're up to 643 active users, so maybe some are right next to you in traffic while we wait. And if you don't mind me asking, what was your wish? Well, it's kind of silly, but it was the first thing that came to mind. I wished for the traffic to clear up, and it's already moving at normal speed. Amazing. Although I guess I kind of wasted my first wish. You did a lot more than that. Do you somehow not understand words? For Christ's sake, You asked me twice why you were stuck in Philadelphia traffic. Shit. Can we try again next year? Well, what other option does everyone else have? Except for you, Brett. Sorry, but the ExoSoul's algorithm has banned you from the app. Good luck and goodbye. The Christmas Queen. A frozen blanket of ice glazed the roads on Fern Street as the Wallace family headed home from a busy day of shopping. The houses were adorned with multicolored lights, and blow-up decorations were as far as the eye could see. Every door had a festive wreath to showcase the spirit of the season, and carolers sang songs of merry for all to hear. Yes, my friends, it was Christmas Eve once again, a time when boys and girls dream of toys and candy, and parents wish for peace on earth. Even grandparents put their worries away and enjoy watching their loved ones celebrate the traditions they have passed down through the years. There was no doubt about it. The holidays have always brought joy to the entire world. As John Wallace pulled into the driveway, he noticed his neighbor, Ben Foster, hanging his Christmas lights. He parked his blue, reindeer-decorated Subaru, looked at his wife, Martha, and said, "It's a little late to be hanging lights, isn't it?" Martha took a sip of her hot chocolate and rasped, "Oh, give him a break. Ben's getting older, and ever since his wife, Alice, passed away a few years ago, he hasn't been the same." John lifted his brow and shrugged. "Yeah, but all things considered, don't you think it's a little counterproductive?" He looked at Ben and continued, "I mean, after Christmas, all this stuff has to come down. So what's the point?" "He likes to be included," Martha said. "Alice used to decorate that house every year, so I suppose he wants to honor her memory." "Humph," John huffed. He looked in the back seat to see his 12-year-old daughter, Sarah, glued to her phone. "Hey, kiddo, we're home. You want to go over and help Ben put up his lights?" Sarah removed her earbuds and snapped, "What? Do you wanna—" "I heard what you said, Dad." Sarah's words cut deeply. "Why should I do that?" Martha put her hot beverage in the cup holder and spoke firmly. "Sarah, we don't need that attitude right now. It's Christmas, so why don't you lend some good cheer and help our neighbor? We have to put these groceries away anyway. You can watch your TikTok videos later." Sarah ruffled her face, pinched her lips together, and fired, "Fine." John widened his eyes as Sarah exploded from the car. "Be good," he said. "It's the holidays." The cool air was comforting because Sarah's insides were boiling. She unzipped her pink jacket and removed her black toboggan snow hat. She reached up, parted her brown hair behind her ears, and marched across the snow. Her unicorn boots sparkled in the moonlight, which matched her black leggings. Martha and John gathered their bounty and smiled as their little girl approached Ben. They were glad to see Sarah heed their words, because they had some presents to hide, and the distraction was a welcomed surprise. "I'm glad to see her do something besides messing with her phone," John said. She's been so distant lately. Yeah, replied Martha. Teens will be teens. She gave Sarah a quick wave and entered the house. Hi, Mr. Foster, Sarah greeted with a quick flutter. Ben was straggling the ladder near his front porch and snapped in another staple to a strand of lights. He nearly fell off when he heard Sarah's voice. When he regained his footing, he looked down and uttered, "Oh, you startled me, little one." Sarah looked up and said, "Do you need help?" "My parents sent me over." He cleared his throat, pointed to a box on his porch, and muttered, "Well, darling, you could hand me those other lights in that box. It sure would help these old legs of mine." "All right," moaned Sarah. She grabbed the lights and noticed a red machine about the size of a lawnmower resting by the sidewalk. She glared at the contraption for a few moments before Ben's voice brought her back to reality. "Don't mind that, sweetie," he said. "That's just the snowblower." He lowered his hand and grinned. "How about those lights?" Sarah ran over to the ladder and reached as high as she could until Ben grasped the lights. She watched as he stapled one strand at a time with his shaky hands. "This is going to take all night." The access line with the plug dangled beside Sarah like a slithering snake, and she pulled out her phone and began recording. "What are you doing?" Ben asked. Sarah sighed. "I'm recording this moment so I can upload it to my TikTok channel later." She lowered her voice and mumbled, "My friends will be so excited to see how boring my life is." "What's Tiki Talk?" Sarah wrinkled her eyebrows. "Really? Don't worry about it. It's just a social media thing." "Ha! Don't worry," said Ben. "I know all about social media. I watch the news all the time." He continued stapling the lights and began humming Jingle Bells. The access wire kept creeping along and got tangled around Sarah's boots. She stumbled a bit, but didn't fall. Once again, her attention turned to the snowblower. She grabbed the cord and placed the end of it in the machine's blades. "This will show him not to trip me again. This thing should strip all those lights, and then I can go home." She saw a lever on the control panel that said "on" and pulled it. With a soft hum, the blades engaged, and the loose wire was pulled into the machine. Sarah stepped back and positioned her phone to capture all the chaos. Ben whipped his head like a startled rodent and yelled, "Turn that off!" His words were cut short as the looped wire around his neck became taut and flung him off the ladder. His body hung in the air while the snowblower pulled against the stapled lights. He tried to break free, but his old hands didn't have the strength. He gasped for air, but none would fill his lungs. Within seconds, all the life in Ben's writhing body ceased, and his eyes grew cold. "Oh, shit," Sarah gasped, turning off the snowblower. "That was awesome!" Later that night, Sarah awoke to flashing red and blue lights shining on her ceiling. And they were not Christmas lights. The police were on the scene, and Sarah watched through her bedroom window as the paramedics took Ben away in a black body bag. Sarah, 1,000 snakes slithered down Sarah's spine when she heard her mother's cry. She ran down the stairs as fast as her little legs would carry her, and found her mom and dad sitting at the kitchen table. "Honey," John said with a long, drawn-out tone, "you were with Ben this evening. Did you notice anything strange?" Sarah clasped her hands behind her back and mumbled, "No." "Are you sure, sweetheart?" Martha asked with tear-filled eyes. "Well," Sarah started, and then paused to scrunch her lips. "I may have done something naughty." She walked closer to the table and leaned against the marbled countertop. John stood up, placed his hand on Sarah's shoulder, and asked, "What did you do?" Sarah fumbled for the right words, but couldn't find them, so she turned her back. "It's all right," John said, looking at Martha. "If you had something to do with what happened tonight, we have to tell the police." "He's right, dear," Martha said. Sarah wrinkled her forehead, clenched her jaw, grabbed a sharp blade from the knife block that was right in front of her, turned, and slashed her father's throat. A thick stream of blood painted Sarah's pink unicorn pajamas, and her mother screamed. John grabbed his severed neck, fell to the floor, and choked on his own blood. "No!" Martha screamed. "What did you do?" Martha ran to John and held him in her arms as he breathed his last breath. When she looked at Sarah through bloodshot eyes, the last thing she saw was the glimmering blade as it penetrated her skull. The blade bit strong and true, and as it pierced Martha's brain, visions of her life flashed by like lightning strikes. And then darkness took her. Sarah gripped the knife and yanked it out of her mother's head. A weary smile crept upon her face as she turned to her phone that she had placed on the countertop earlier. TikTok is gonna love this. Suddenly, Sarah heard footsteps coming from the living room. She grew silent and heard the faint sound of bells jingling in the distance. Out of curiosity, Sarah tiptoed out of the kitchen and peeked around the wall to see a white-bearded man wearing a red suit with black boots putting presents underneath the tree. "Santa?" gasped Sarah. The jolly man turned and bellowed, "Ho, ho, ho!" Sarah ran towards him with the knife held high, and his tone quickly changed. "Ho, ho, ho, oh, no." He grabbed her arm and took the knife away. "Put that away. It's Christmas." "No, you big fat bully," Sarah yelled. "Let me go." Santa looked at Sarah's blood-soaked pajamas and said, "Something tells me you've been a naughty girl this year. I knew I should have checked that list twice. I guess I'm getting a little lazy. I should have listened to Mrs. Claus." She's always right. What did you do, little girl? I'm not telling you, Sarah snapped. He held Sarah's arm and walked into the kitchen, where he discovered the cold bodies of her parents. Oh, no. You have been a bad girl. What should I do with you? Well, this is Christmas, and I think you should come with me until I fly to the police station. You must answer for this crime. No, Sarah yelled. You can't make me do anything. Ho, ho, ho. I'm Santa Claus, and I will do what's best for you. He grabbed Sarah's arm a little tighter, placed a finger on his nose, and they disappeared up the chimney in a puff of magic smoke. They appeared in Santa's sleigh on the roof, and with a quick dash, they were off flying with his 9 reindeer: Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen, and Rudolph. Sarah pulled out her phone and pressed the record button. No one is going to believe this. They flew around for a few minutes before landing on the next roof, and Santa quickly delivered his gifts. When he emerged from the chimney, Sarah folded her arms and scoffed. I thought you were taking me to jail. Ho, 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 huffed Santa. I plan on doing just that after I make a few more deliveries. He laughed, and Sarah couldn't believe that his belly did indeed shake like a bowl full of jelly. It is Christmas, after all, and time is of the essence. He grabbed the reins and said, Now, hold tight. Here we go. Ho, like a twinkle from a Christmas light. They were off again, soaring through the clouds. Sarah expected to feel the freezing temperatures, but was toasty warm in the sleigh. Santa's red gift bag was neatly tucked in the back seat, and Sarah decided to have a peek. She gave Santa a double take to make sure he wasn't watching her, and untied the thick golden rope around his bag. She raised her eyebrows when a blinding light began to show itself through the opening. The warmth and power caressed her soul. It was a strange feeling. What is this? Ho, ho, ho. It's the Christmas spirit of love, Santa said with a warm smile. It's something that you have closed your heart to. He turned and watched Sarah close the sack. Her droopy eyes and frown showed the beginnings of sorrow. I think people sometimes forget that I know all and see all. It's so annoying. Ho, ho. Santa reached up and patted his white, fluffy beard and continued. What you need to understand is that while this world is filled with hate, there is also hope. Hope to overcome hardship and faith to do good. I believe you have that warmth in your heart, and all you need to do is admit your wrongdoings and let the healing begin. Everyone can change. No words came from Sarah. She sat stone-faced and seemed lost in deep thought. Santa nodded and steered his beloved reindeer to the next house. Not to worry, Sarah. Forgiveness will always be there for you when you want to accept it. As Santa landed on the snow-covered roof, he stood next to the chimney with his red sack of presents and gave Sarah another cheerful look. I won't be long. Our next stop will be the police station, and then your healing can begin. Ho, ho. Sit tight. I'll be right back. He touched his nose, transformed into a dazzling, colorful mist, and swooped down the chimney. He filled the stockings hanging by the fireplace with candy and doodads, and placed a handful of presents under the sparkling tree. A plateful of peanut butter cookies caught his eye before leaving. Oh, my favorite, he beamed. How can I say no? Ho, ho. Santa ate every last crumb and drank the full glass of milk that was left for him. Most people believed that he preferred chocolate chip cookies, but the savory taste of peanut butter was his weakness. Time was getting on, and Santa snorted his way back up the chimney. When he emerged from the smoky funnel, he fell to his knees, and his rosy face turned red. The snow-covered roof was painted blood red, and the reindeer were gathered in a circle, snooting and grunting. As the reindeer parted, Santa saw Sarah sitting on Rudolph's mutilated carcass, eating his red nose. A slight trickle of bright red ichor flowed down her chin. It does taste like a cherry. Santa rose with a clatter and yanked Sarah off of Rudolph. What have you done? His face shook like a bowl full of molded pudding. I thought you could change. I believed you had some good in your heart. Ack! His words were cut short when Sarah quickly slashed his throat with the knife she found in the front seat of the sleigh. Santa should have left it at Sarah's house when he took it from her. But mistakes are habitual. Santa's white, fluffy beard soaked up the blood like a thick towel and turned crimson. His jolly-filled eyes twinkled and rolled back into his head, where visions of Christmas pasts grew dark. His jingle bell knees quivered and gave out, and he collapsed in front of Sarah like a deflated blow-up decoration. Sarah's eyes danced in the bloodshed twilight, and she laughed with a bubbly voice. Ha, 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 ho. Merry Christmas, you fat bastard. You thought you knew what I needed? Well, screw you. She grabbed her recording phone that was positioned on the sleigh, held it up, and said, "To all my TikTok followers and the non-believers, the spirit of Christmas can be killed. That's how you do it, my friends." Sarah stopped recording and noticed the goosebumps forming on her slender arms. Jack Frost was wickedly biting into her bones as the warmth of the Christmas magic faded. Her pink, blood-covered unicorn pajamas were no match for the freezing temperatures, so she ran over to Santa's rotting corpse removed his heavy red coat and put it on. The coat was too big for her small frame, but in an instant, Sarah's insides stopped quivering, and a circle of warm, magic dust swirled around her. All at once, the jacket adjusted itself to fit her body perfectly, and Sarah felt a power that only dreams could bring. She heard children's voices and saw their dreams as they slept. Sarah automatically knew who was good and who was bad. There was an overwhelming sense of joy, and she swatted it down with a gust of hatred. Well, who would have thought? Sarah watched as the reindeer instantly took their place by the sleigh, and Prancer gave her a look that would kill most people. "What?" she asked, shrugging her shoulders. "I've always been the love of my own life, and it's only fitting that I become the Queen of Christmas." Sarah knew exactly what to do. Christmas must go on. There was no question about that. But what form would it take? She pulled out her phone again, hit the live stream button on TikTok, and laughed as the number of viewers crossed the billions. With the device held high to capture the perfect angle, Sarah smiled a devilish grin and rejoiced. "It's time to spread some Christmas fear, Stargazier." With rumblings of war rolling along the coastline, the knock startled Cecil. His grip tightened on the pewter plates as a sense of foreboding took hold. Opening the door revealed a handsome stranger with refined features as if carved from marble. He had jet black hair and eyes that glinted like cold steel. "Good evening and Happy Christmas," said the stranger in a rich baritone. "My apologies for the intrusion, but it seems my carriage has lost a wheel just up the road. Might I trouble you for some shelter from the cold while my man fetches assistance?" Cecil hesitated. He had been expecting his brother-in-law. He was struck dumb. Before he could collect his wits, his wife appeared behind him. "Marry a sec?" she asked. Seeing the stranger standing in the door, she apologized. "Sorry, I thought you were me brother. His carriage threw a wheel," Cecil said. "Of course. Please come in," Sharon said, nudging her husband aside and opening the door wider. The stranger rubbed down his arms as if to shift rain from his finely tailored long coat. Though wary, Cecil relented under his wife's insistence. As the stranger stepped inside, removing his leather gloves, Cecil couldn't shake the feeling of darkness lurking beneath the polished, genteel surface. He led the man toward the sitting room as Sharon fetched some tea, hoping his instinct was wrong. The man shrugged off his jacket, folded it neatly, and put his Homburg on top. "I'm Cecil, by the way," he added politely. "And you are?" "Moloch. Abraham Moloch," said the stranger with a thin smile as he took a seat by the fire. "A pleasure to make your acquaintance." "What brings you to this part of the coast?" Cecil asked. Sharon returned with a tea tray, casting a reproachful look at Cecil for not taking the stranger's bag or hanging his hat. "Please make yourself comfortable, Mr. Moloch," she said warmly, handing him a cup. Just then, their 2 children peeked into the room, eyes widening at the unfamiliar guest. They had heard rumors of German soldiers landing along the coast and were wary. "The tall one is Felix. The runt is Jasper," Sharon said. She busied herself pouring tea, checking his sack coat. Mr. Moloch's face soured. "I seem to be out of cinder toffees. Bad luck? Perhaps next time." He then opened his bag and pulled out a few colorful Christmas crackers. The children's caution vanished at the sight. "For your little ones," Mr. Moloch said, with a genteel nod, handing the crackers to Sharon. She gave them to the delighted children. The stranger made a show of patting his pockets. "My apologies. I seem to have left my coin purse on my carriage." He turned to Cecil. "Please, take this as a token for your hospitality," he said, offering a large golden ring set with a glittering red gemstone. Cecil politely declined. "That won't be necessary, really. We're happy to help," Mr. Moloch insisted, but Cecil refused once more. Finally, Mr. Moloch returned the ring to his pocket, a flicker of irritation passing over his features before the charming smile reappeared. In her lilting accent, Sharon offered to share their dinner. "There's plenty of stargazy pie and stewed greens to go around. 'Tis no trouble," Mr. Moloch accepted graciously. "You are too kind. I apologize for the inconvenience. I'm on my way to London to view a portrait. Please let me contribute. It's not a bother." Moloch's voice rumbled like distant artillery. Cecil imagined the windows rattling. "Oh, nonsense. Travelers are welcome. It wouldn't be Christian of us to turf you out," Sharon said, then turned sharply to the children. "And don't you dare be popping them crackers till supper," she instructed Cecil to fetch an extra place setting and yelled to the kitchen for one of the children to bring the stool, so Mr. Moloch had a place to sit. Leaving to finish the cooking preparations, she tossed a meaningful glance at her husband. With Sharon gone, Mr. Moloch again offered Cecil the ring. "Please, I must insist. Consider it thanks for your hospitality." This time, with no one else present, Cecil accepted it, sliding the ring onto his finger. The red gem glinted in the firelight. Mr. Moloch smiled, leaning back with a smirk. Cecil studied the ring on his hand. It looked expensive. How would he explain this extravagant gift to Sharon? She had refused it just minutes ago. Perhaps he could trade it in the village without her ever knowing. He quickly took it off and put it in his pocket. The family sat down to dinner, with the older boy pushing the stool into Jasper's spot. The smell of fresh bread and fish followed Sharon. Jasper's knees poked up too high, so he stretched his legs out to the sides. "Don't be rockin', Jasp. We've got company." Sharon put her hand on Jasper's leg to hold him still. Jasper moved the wiggles up to his shoulders in defiance. "We've got plenty of food. I'm afraid we've mashed together our holidays on account of me brother comin' home from the war." He should be along any time now, Cecil whistled. Don't mind my wife. She's Cornish and a wee bit potty. Sharon playfully smacked Cecil's shoulder. You familiar with the story of Tom Bawcock? It's Mariusec's favorite holiday, so we didn't want him to miss out. Would you like me to recount the tale? Cecil feigned disinterest, having heard it many times before. It's just a fish tale. I'd love to hear it. Mr. Moloch's eyes opened wide. Dinner and a show? You are too kind, clearing her throat. Sharon launched into song. A merry place, you may believe, was Mousehole, 'pon Tom Bawcock's eve. To be there, then, who wouldn't wish to sup o' 7 sorts o' fish? Cecil interjected. Could you at least sing in plain English, dear? I was, Sharon replied indignantly, then laughed at her flustered husband. The children joined in teasing Cecil as she continued. When Murgy Broth had cleared the path, comed lances for a fry. And then us had a bit o' ska, and starry gazy pie. Mr. Moloch applauded enthusiastically, rising to his feet. Marvelous. You have a true gift, my dear. Thank you for sharing such a delightful folk tale. Sharon beamed, giving a slight curtsy before urging everyone to tuck into the feast before them. The children reached for the Christmas crackers. Mr. Moloch raised a hand. Please, allow me to share a tradition from my home. Are you familiar with Snapdragon? Cecil perked up, recalling playing it as a boy, burning his mouth in the process. He nodded with a grin. From his bag, Mr. Moloch produced a tin of dried fruits and almonds and a bottle of brandy. Using the lid of the tin as a dish, he tapped out a few pieces of fruit and doused them with the brandy. He lit the fruit with a match. They ignited in blue fire. Plucking a piece of dried apple up, he popped it into his mouth, then blew out a small blue flame. The children watched, enthralled. When Felix reached out, Mr. Moloch pulled the tin away. There is a rule to this game, a way to show what you are most thankful for. He turned to Cecil meaningfully. In this dance, with fear and shadow, reveal the ember burning deepest within. Speak not of fleeting joy, but lay bare the pulsating rhythm that makes you feel alive. For in the flicker of this flame, you offer the essence binding you to existence, the marrow of your being. Choose wisely, for what you express in this dance may echo beyond the crackling fire. Cecil tensed, unsettled by the speech. He started to object, but Sharon and the children insisted on playing. Reluctantly, Cecil nodded, hoping it was merely an odd tradition and nothing more. Jasper went first, popping a flaming fig into his mouth and blowing out a wisp of blue flame. My fossil collection, he declared proudly. Felix blew a slightly larger plume. My brother, Jasper! Jasper took a moment to decide if that was an insult, and chose to accept it as so, with a broad, crooked smile. Sharon selected a piece of dried plum, popped it in her mouth, and blew a modest burst of blue. My singing voice, of course. She put her hand to her mouth. Blooming hot, Cecil blew a flame and said, maintaining our thankful village, with all returned so far from the war. Mr. Moloch inhaled deeply, then exhaled an enormous, writhing blue jet. Nothing, he uttered in his deep bass. They pulled their Christmas crackers. With a festive popping, a scattering of paper crowns and trinkets spread across the table. But then, Cecil noticed Jasper was gone. On the empty place where Jasper had sat was a letter stating Mariasek had died in the trenches in Le Cateau. Somberly, they had set the extra place for the missing brother. The first casualty of war come to their village. Cecil looked around, confused. Hadn't someone been sitting across from him just a moment ago? He felt bad for his wife. She'd been so upset. It was nice, however, to have a house guest. He also wondered why Felix was using the kitchen stool and not the chair set for his brother-in-law's spirit. But glancing at Mr. Moloch's smiling face, the questions slipped from Cecil's mind. Sharon offered to sing Tom Bawcock's tale in her gravelly voice. Mr. Moloch was eager to hear it. She began, "A merry plaise, you may believe, was mousel upon Tom Bawcock's eve." Cecil quickly stopped her, feeling something was amiss. Her voice wasn't her best trait. It's a Cornish tradition about a fisherman during a time of famine who bravely set out in a storm to feed the town where Sharon came up. Mr. Moloch proposed a round of snapdragon, calling it a beloved pagan tradition where you express gratitude. Wary but enticed, Cecil agreed to play, as did an enthusiastic Felix and Sharon. Mr. Moloch turned to Cecil. "As the flames dance, whisper the heartbeat of your existence. Share not what you cherish, but the core defining your breath. What in your soul would you sacrifice to the hungry fire?" Felix blew a blue jet. "My boxing gloves!" Sharon smiled proudly at her son's first true passion. She blew her flame. "My son Felix!" Felix beamed. Cecil contemplated a moment before blowing his fiery breath. The proud, strong Royal Navy keeping invaders at bay. As the crackers popped, Sharon let out a wail. Felix was gone. Sobbing, she explained her boy was killed in the German shelling of the coast. He was so fond of Unton fossils after Boxen in Whitby. My apologies for her. It's been a trying time, Cecil said. She'd lost her voice from ceaseless weeping over the past fortnight. Mr. Moloch looked pained. My sincerest regrets at your loss. They sat in silence for a few moments, so Sharon could collect herself. Perhaps a round of snapdragon to lift spirits? Mr. Moloch suggested. My family tradition is to share what we are most thankful for. He turned to Cecil. You know the rules. Speak the fire within, the pulse of your sacrifice, What do you cherish most? Sharon blew a wisp of blue. My lovely home, Cecil contemplated before breathing his flame. My beautiful wife, Mr. Moloch rumbled. Nothing, his jet dwarfing theirs. The crackers popped like artillery fire as Cecil transitioned to sitting with Mr. Moloch in a seaside shack. Cecil drank heavily from the offered brandy, lamenting his wife, his children, his home, his brother. He stared at the letter, telling of his brother-in-law's death. Cecil's memories slipped away like vapor. He regretted not living the life he wanted, blaming the demon drink that stole his wife, kids, and chance to take his place in battle. Mr. Moloch offered dried fruit and a game of snapdragon to lift his spirits. Sacrifice the spark, keeping your flame alive, fueling your dance in shadows, he instructed. Cecil blew a wisp of blue. My health? Mr. Moloch rumbled. Nothing. Then he offered a Christmas cracker. The pop left a hint of black powder in the air. In a bedroom, Mr. Moloch sat beside Cecil. They played again, Cecil sacrificing his only prized possession, the ring sitting heavy in his pocket. Mr. Moloch blew out a large flame and crunched into his almond, then said, Nothing. Cecil stood to pull the cracker. Mr. Moloch assisted Cecil's palsied hand. A pop and a wisp of smoke. Cecil reached for the flaming fruit, blew out a flame. My home. They pulled the cracker together. Mr. Moloch offered his coat to Cecil, a destitute man on the roadside. He pulled a table and chairs from the back of his broken coach, then invited Cecil to share some stargazy pie while his carriage was repaired. Cecil recognized the pie and table. Memories of his wife and children flooded back. He despaired at their loss. The rancid pie at the end of Cecil's ordeal seemed a mockery, stale remnants of a life freely sacrificed to an insatiable demon. Despite this, the food was more than welcome. Each bite revealed years of life, each crumb a precious scene. He ate at his memories as a starved man. Please return all as it was. I refuse to play Snapdragon any longer, he pleaded. Mr. Moloch just smiled. One final cracker. He shook the cracker enticingly. Cecil cried, My life. I'd trade my life for theirs. Finally, Mr. Moloch uttered, holding out the cracker. This time, Cecil got the bigger half. Dreadful luck, Cecil. He set the paper crown atop Cecil's head. Strands of Cecil's hair drifted onto Mr. Moloch's sleeve. Cecil sat numbly as Mr. Moloch brushed off the fallen hair, gingerly placing one in his front vest pocket. You traded your life, family, and youth for a ring. Then, even the ring you returned. When will humans learn to give selflessly? But what of my children's souls? Cecil asked, his voice frail, but insistent. Their bodies, I can find a use. Their souls are their own, replied Moloch, tapping his finger to his lips. You know, I never ask for children, yet I'm often offered them. Perhaps you know why humans so eagerly trade their future. Cecil had a coughing fit. I am not heartless, spiritually, added Moloch. I can offer you one last challenge, a gift if you answer a riddle. But you would not know the gift beforehand. Having nothing left, Cecil accepted the challenge. This one was from a Canaanite whom I knew several lifetimes ago. In every heartbeat and every sigh, I'm the reason you laugh and the tears you cry. From the first cry of newborn breath to the quiet stillness at death's edge. What am I? Moloch adjusted his hat and waved to his coach. I am expected in London to collect a portrait of a young man. It seems its owner has withered away in a locked room. The damn fool. He smiled. Souls aren't typically my business, but that fellow. Please let me think in silence. Moloch shrugged. Life, Cecil said, sure of his answer. Please give me my family, my wife, Jasper. I beg you, I want peace. Please, I have given up everything. Correct, Moloch said. He handed Cecil a draft. If you drink it, none of this would matter. He waved his hands theatrically. Far out at sea, a ship was on fire. The scent of gunpowder and death rolled over the seaside like a fog. Cecil was caught by hope's web. He imagined he'd wake with his family by his side. So he drank without hesitation. The blue liquid smelled of blueberries and spirits. The flavor was a simple, mildly floral sweetness, but empty, like drinking a hole. He was alone, holding an empty bottle. He began a long, quiet walk down a dark road. A carriage passed within a beautiful voice rang out. A merry plays you may believe was mousel upon Tom Bawcock's eve. To be there, then wooden wesh, to sup o sibm sorts o fesh. When Morgie broth had cleared the path, comed lances for a fry, and then us had a bet and starry gazi pie. Nex cummed for mods, brathusti jods, as mod are oozles, dry, and ling and hock, enough to make a raunen shark to sigh. A H wid clunk as elth were drunk, and bumpers bremen why. And when up come Tom Bawcock's, nam we praised unto the sky. Two boys waved from the carriage window at the old man wearing a paper crown. Cecil smiled at them as they passed. On 25th December, an unofficial truce was declared along the Western Front. Peace for a day. Perhaps Moloch was not entirely heartless. Cecil did ask for peace.